My wife's business trip this time lasted 3 full months. Standing at the arrivals gate at the airport, watching her walk toward me with a slight hesitation in her step, a strange feeling washed over me. A few days ago, on FaceTime, she'd said she had a cold. Looking at her now, it was clear it hadn't gotten better. If anything, she looked worse. Chloe had lost weight. Her eyes seemed sunken, making them look unnervingly large in her pale face. She was wearing a loose, beige trench coat. The fitted dresses she used to love were nowhere to be seen. I moved forward to meet her, taking the small carry-on from her hand. It was absurdly light. "What's going on?" "I thought you said it was just a cold," I said, reaching out to feel her forehead. She flinched like a startled rabbit, instinctively turning away. My hand froze in midair, and the atmosphere turned instantly to ice. I'm fine, just a little tired." Chloe's eyes darted away as she forced a weak smile. "The AC in the airport is freezing. Let's just go home. My name is Nathan Pierce. I'm a director of engineering at a mid-sized software company. Chloe and I have been married for 3 years. Our relationship has always been strong. We were the model couple in our circle of friends. We barely ever fought. She was gentle and considerate. I was driven and hardworking. Our life was as calm as a placid lake. But in these 3 months, it felt like everything had changed. Chloe works in marketing for a multinational corporation. She was sent to a coastal city in Florida to lead a new project, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, she'd said. As much as I hated the thought of being apart, I supported her completely for the sake of her career. The first month she was gone, we FaceTimed every day. The second month, it dwindled to every few days. She said the project was overwhelming her, that she was swamped. By the third month, I'd send a dozen texts only to get a one-word reply hours later: busy or tired, going to sleep. I chalked it up to work stress. I tried to cheer her up, sending her care packages with her favorite artisanal chocolates and gourmet coffee. But looking at her now, I knew the problem wasn't just work. Back at her house, I poured her a cup of tea. She held the mug in her hands, but her gaze was distant, unfocused. She couldn't sit still. I sat across from her, watching her in silence. Finally, I asked the question that had been clawing at me the entire ride home. "Chloe, how come you're not wearing any of your usual dresses? You always love dressing up." Her body went rigid. Her knuckles turned white as she gripped the mug. It was hot there. "Loose clothes are more comfortable," she mumbled, her head bowed, her voice barely a whisper. I stood up and walked over to her, slowly kneeling down. My eyes followed the loose hem of her trench coat. I could see the slight, but unmistakable, curve of her stomach. She was thin, but this was not the gentle swell of a food baby. My heart stopped. The blood in my veins turned to ice. A chilling numbness crept from the soles of my feet to the crown of my head. I lifted my head and stared directly into her eyes, my voice a raw, ragged thing I didn't recognize. "Chloe, tell me what the hell is going on." She started trembling, and tears began to fall, hot and fast, like broken strands of pearls. They landed on the back of my hand, scalding. "Nathan, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She was sobbing now, unable to say anything else. Sorry, the word was a poison-tipped blade twisting in my heart. In 3 years of marriage, I had given her everything. I worked myself to the bone so she could have a better life, enduring brutal deadlines and stomach-shredding stress without a single complaint to her. Anything she wanted, if it was within my power, I bought it for her without a second thought. I never let her worry about a single chore in our home, and this is what I got in return. She goes away for 3 months and comes back carrying another man's child, offering me a pathetic, weightless sorry. Rage and humiliation burned through my reason. I shot to my feet, stumbling as a wave of dizziness hit me. "Whose is it?" I felt the words being squeezed from between my teeth, each one tasting of blood. She just kept crying, sobbing her heart out as if she were the victim. "Whose is it?" I grabbed her by the shoulders, shaking her. "Chloe, you tell me who the hell that bastard is." My fury terrified her into silence. She looked up, her face a mess of tears, her eyes wide with fear. Her lips trembled. After a long moment, she choked out a few words. "Nathan, let me explain. It's not what you think." "Not what I think." "Then what is it?" I laughed, a bitter, cutting sound. "Let me guess, you're going to tell me it's mine?" We were 1,000 miles apart. Did you get pregnant by immaculate conception? My words struck her like a whip. She shuddered violently, her face ashen. Looking at her, a toxic mix of hatred and disappointment threatened to tear me apart. I let her go and staggered back, a profound sense of defeat washing over me. We're getting a divorce. I never thought those words would ever come out of my mouth. I thought we would be one of those fairy tales, living happily ever after until we were old and gray. Reality had just delivered a brutal slap to the face. Hearing the word divorce, Chloe reacted as if she'd been electrocuted. She threw herself at my feet, grabbing my legs and wailing. No, Nathan, don't leave me. Please, just let me explain. I had no choice, I swear. No choice? I looked down at the woman I once loved more than life itself, and all I felt was disgust and a searing sense of irony. What kind of no choice leads a married woman to get pregnant with another man's child? I pulled Chloe up from the floor and half threw her onto the sofa. Talk, I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. I'll give you one chance to explain. I want to hear what kind of excuse lets you put me through this humiliation. Chloe wiped her tears and, through hiccuping sobs, began her story. It was bizarre, unbelievably cliché. She said her good-for-nothing brother, Kyle, had gotten into gambling debt again. Kyle was a black hole, enabled his whole life by their mother. He bounced from job to job, never lasting more than a few months, and spent his time with a crew of degenerate friends. 2 years ago, he'd racked up $30,000 in debt. I drained my savings and borrowed from a friend to bail him out. Back then, Chloe had cried and promised me it would never happen again. Her mother swore on a Bible that if Kyle ever gambled again, she'd break his legs herself. I believed them, because I loved Chloe and I wanted to believe her family could get their act together. Turns out, I was the biggest idiot in the world. This time, he owes $100,000, Chloe stammered. It's a loan shark. They said if we don't pay in 2 weeks, they're going to take one of his hands. I laughed, a humorless, angry sound. $100,000? Why didn't you just rob a bank? Your family is really moving up in the world. Chloe buried her face in her hands. Mom's a wreck. She's so stressed her heart condition is flaring up. We sold everything we could, borrowed from every relative we have. We were still $75,000 short. I was desperate. So you found a rich guy, and your plan was to have his baby and sell it to him to pay off your brother's debt. I cut straight to the point, my voice dripping with ice. Chloe flinched, her head snapping up. Her eyes were wide with shock, as if asking, "How did you know?" I sneered. A plot so pathetic it wouldn't even make it into a daytime soap opera was actually my life. Yes and no. Her gaze fell, a look of resignation washing over her. The person. He's a client. His name is Leo Vance. He's in his 40s, very wealthy. He and his wife are happy, but they've never been able to have children. They've tried IVF several times, and it failed. One night at a work dinner, I had too much to drink and vented to him a little about my family problems. I didn't think he was really listening, but a few days later, he contacted me privately. He proposed a transaction. Chloe paused, struggling to get the words out. He said he could clear the $75,000 debt. The condition was that I carry a child for him, using an embryo created from him and his wife. My mind went blank, a deafening roar filling my ears as if I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. Surrogacy. It was a word I'd only ever seen in headlines. I never imagined it would have anything to do with me. So you weren't on a business trip at all. You want to be a surrogate for someone. My entire worldview was fracturing. Chloe nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. The project in Florida was real, but my company sent someone else. I used it as a cover story to go to the city Leo arranged. I've been staying in a discreet condo, just resting. The contract was very clear. Once the baby is born and a DNA test confirms it's theirs, I get the money. I'm not allowed to have any relationship with the child. She finished and looked up at me, her eyes pleading. Nathan, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have hidden this from you, but I had no other choice. My brother is a screw-up, but he's my brother. I couldn't just stand by and watch someone cut off his hand. And I was scared. Scared you would look down on me, that you would think my family was just a burden. So you decided to carry it all yourself? I cut her off, my voice terrifyingly calm. Chloe, Do you think I care more about 75 grand than I do about you carrying another man's child for money? What do you take me for? Your husband? Or some fool you can keep in the dark whenever you feel like it? My calmness terrified her more than my yelling. No, that's not it. Nathan, I love you. I really do. I was just so stupid. You're not stupid. You're selfish, I said, enunciating every word. For your lost cause brother and your hysterical mother, you were willing to sacrifice our marriage and trample all over my dignity. In your world, your family always comes first. And me, Nathan Pierce, I'm just an afterthought. I was shouting by the end. A wave of profound exhaustion and nausea rolled over me. I couldn't stand to look at her tear-streaked face for another second. Get out, I said, pointing to the door. Take your sob story and get out of my house. Nathan, get out. Seeing the finality in my expression, Chloe didn't dare argue further. She stumbled to her feet, looking back at me with every step, her eyes filled with desperation and regret. I turned my head away. The front door opened, then clicked shut. The house was plunged into a dead, suffocating silence. Feeling like every ounce of strength had been drained from my body, I collapsed onto the sofa and stared at the ceiling, my eyes dry and burning. Surrogacy. She said the child wasn't hers and some other man's, but a client's embryo. Did that make it even marginally better than a straightforward affair? No. I immediately crushed the absurd thought. A betrayal is a betrayal. A lie is a lie. No matter how tragic a story she wrapped it in, it didn't change the fact that she was pregnant with a child for another man. Even if she was just a vessel, it was a complete and utter betrayal of me and our marriage. My wife, without my knowledge, had rented out her womb. If this got out, I, Nathan Pierce, would become a laughingstock among my friends and at my company. Divorce. It was the only way. I pulled out my phone to call my friend, who was a lawyer. Just then, the screen lit up, a text alert from my bank. Chase Bank, a direct deposit of $75,000 was made to your checking account, ending in XXXX on October 30th, 2025 at 5:35 p.m. Your new balance is $75,012.50. I froze. $75,000. Why would $75,000 suddenly appear in my account? I checked the sender number again and again. It was official. This wasn't a phishing scam. My stomach dropped as a terrible thought crystallized in my mind. This account was our joint account. Chloe knew the password. The money was transferred right now, just moments after I threw her out. My mind immediately jumped to the man she called Leo Vance. Was this hush money? Or was this money not for surrogacy at all, but something else entirely? A cold sweat broke out across my back. Chloe's story was full of holes. If it was really a surrogacy arrangement, why pay me now? Wouldn't a normal transaction involve paying the final amount after the child is born and everything is confirmed? She's only a few months along. Her pregnancy is barely showing. Who pays in full up front? Was this Leo Vance an idiot? Was he not afraid she'd take the money and run? And she said he was a client who, after hearing her complain one time while drunk, decided to offer up 75 grand to help her. Does a thing like that even happen in the real world? Would a shrewd businessman make that kind of high-risk charity investment? Something was wrong. There was definitely something else going on here. I forced myself to calm down and re-examine everything. Chloe's strange behavior started with this business trip. She said she went to Florida. I opened my laptop and logged into her American Airlines account. Luckily, she had auto login saved. It took no effort to get in. Her booking history showed a one-way flight booked 3 months ago to Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City, a mid-sized city in the Midwest, just a short flight from us in Denver. Not the southern coast of Florida. She was lying. She had been lying from the very beginning. My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt a suffocating sense of being trapped in a massive conspiracy. I immediately opened Google and typed in Leo Vance and Kansas City. A local business journal article popped up at the top. Casey's rising star Leo Vance, named Entrepreneur of the Year. The article featured a photo of a man in a sharp suit and wire-rimmed glasses who looked polished and sophisticated. He was about 40, just as Chloe had described. In the background was the logo for his company, Vance Innovations. My pupils contracted. Vance Innovations. Wasn't that her ex-boyfriend's company? Greg's company? Chloe had mentioned her first love to me once, a guy named Greg she dated in college. They broke up amicably after he became obsessed with starting his own company, and they drifted apart. She'd spoken of it casually, as just a fond memory, but I remembered it clearly. One time, we were looking through old photo albums, and she pointed to a guy in a picture. "That's Greg," she'd said. "He was kind of a dork back then." I'd seen that photo many times. The young man in the picture, though less polished, had the same facial structure as this Leo Vance. They were unmistakably the same person. Leo Vance. Greg. Did he change his name? Or was Leo his middle name that he went by professionally? It didn't matter. What mattered was that the client Chloe claimed to have coincidentally met was actually her unforgettable first love. So this wasn't some cliché surrogacy story. This was a premeditated affair, a rekindling of an old flame. The business trip was a lie to go see her ex-boyfriend. The surrogacy was a lie to cover up the fact that she was pregnant with her lover's child. The so-called client's wife, the IVF embryo. It was all a story she concocted to deceive me. She was afraid I'd find out she was cheating, so she invented a more dignified lie. A lie that would make me seem angry about money, rather than the pathetic husband who'd been cheated on. She thought that would lessen her guilt, maybe even earn my sympathy. What masterful bait and switch. What incredible deception. Chloe, you're something else. I was shaking with rage. I slammed my fist on the desk, the impact making my monitor tremble. That $75,000 wasn't payment for surrogacy. It was a severance package from my wife's lover. Money to keep the baby quiet. Did they really think they could just pay me off? Pay off the ex-husband? After the rage came an Arctic cold. I stared at Leo Vance's smug, successful face on the screen and felt a cruel smile spread across my lips. You two want to be together. You think money can buy you anything you want. Fine. I, Nathan Pierce, will burn my entire life to the ground if that's what it takes to make you pay the most painful price imaginable for what you've done. I will teach you that some things can't be bought. Like dignity. Like payback. I didn't confront Chloe immediately. Tipping my hand before I had all the cards would be the stupidest possible move. I needed evidence. Hard, undeniable proof that would nail them to a cross of public shame for the rest of their lives. For the next few days, I lived like a ghost. During the day, I went to work as usual. I smiled, I managed my projects, I joked with my colleagues, acting as if nothing had happened. One of them even commented that I seemed to be glowing now that my wife was back. You know what they say? I replied with a laugh. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Inside, I was bleeding out. Only late at night, in the silence of that cold, empty house, did I begin my secret investigation. First, the money. I left the $75,000 untouched in the account. I checked the transfer details. The sender was an unfamiliar personal account under the name Jennifer Smith. I figured it had to be one of Leo Vance's assistants, someone he used to handle his dirty work. That lead was a dead end for now. Second, the people. I hired a private investigator. My lawyer friend recommended him, said he was the best and most discreet in the business. I gave him photos of Chloe and Leo Vance with a simple request. Find out everything they did in Kansas City for the past 3 months. I wanted every detail, where they lived, who they saw, where they went. All I could do then was wait. During that time, Chloe called me endlessly and sent a flood of iMessages. At first, she was crying, begging for my forgiveness, saying she knew she was wrong and pleading for another chance. When I didn't respond, her messages turned hysterical. Nathan, what do you want from me? Are you trying to destroy me? Do you hate me this much? After 3 years together, does our marriage mean nothing to you? My mom called asking what's wrong. I didn't know what to say. Nathan, please, just answer me. Let's meet and talk this out. I read the messages and scoffed. Even now, she was still acting, still trying to use our 3 years together as a weapon to manipulate me. The more she tried, the more my hatred grew. I blocked her number and her contact on all apps. Finally, silence. A week later, the investigator delivered his first report, a thick manila envelope. I closed the door to my home office, drew the blinds, and opened it. Inside were dozens of photographs and a detailed report of their movements. In the photos, Chloe and Leo were intimate, looking every bit the couple in the throes of a passionate romance. There they were, having a candlelit dinner at one of Kansas City's most expensive restaurants, Leo tenderly cutting Chloe's steak for her. There they were in a designer boutique, Leo swiping his credit card to buy Chloe the latest handbag while she beamed with joy. They were holding hands walking through a park, kissing by a lake. The most damning photo was of them leaving a private fertility and maternity clinic. Chloe was nestled against Leo's side, her face glowing with the shy happiness of a new mother-to-be. Leo had one protective arm around her, his eyes, full of adoration, fixed on her belly. That picture was a branding iron searing my eyes. My hand clenched the photograph so tightly my nails dug into my palm. Any lingering hope, any sliver of doubt, was utterly obliterated in that instant. This wasn't surrogacy. This was a calculated, in-my-face, adulterous affair. The written report was even more detailed. The apartment where Chloe stayed in Kansas City with a high-end condo owned by Leo Vance, worth a small fortune. For 3 months, she hadn't worked a single day. Her life consisted of shopping sprees, spa days, and prenatal appointments. And Leo, whenever he wasn't on a business trip, came back to that condo every single night. They were living together like a married couple. At the end of the report was a background check on Leo Vance. It was just as I suspected. Leo Vance, born Greg, a Kansas City native, started Vance Innovations from scratch after college. The report highlighted a key reason for his rapid success. He married well. His wife was Victoria Davenport, the only daughter of the former U.S. Senator Harrison Davenport. Though retired, Senator Davenport was still one of the most powerful figures in the state. Leo had leveraged his father-in-law's network to secure lucrative government contracts, building the foundation of his empire. The report also mentioned a critical detail. Victoria Davenport had a medical condition that prevented her from having children. So that was it. That was why Leo was so desperate to have a child on the side. He wanted an heir to solidify his position, but he didn't dare divorce his powerful wife. His entire kingdom was built on her family's influence. So he went looking for Chloe, his first love, a woman he thought was simple, naive, and easy to control. He fed her a lie about surrogacy, making her believe she was carrying a child for a desperate, childless couple, all while seducing her, when in reality, she was just a pawn in his dynastic ambitions. And Chloe, blinded by a rekindled romance, actually believed she was making a noble sacrifice to save her screw-up brother. She thought she could get the money, solve her family's problems, and then come back to me as if nothing had happened. So naive and so malicious. I closed my eyes and took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to suppress the murderous rage boiling in my chest. Impulse was the enemy. The evidence I had was enough to ensure Chloe would walk away with nothing in a divorce, her reputation in tatters. But that wasn't enough. My target wasn't just her. It was Leo Vance. I wanted him to know what it felt like to fall from the heavens and crash into the deepest pit of hell. For a man who owed his success to his wife, what was his greatest fear? Losing the support of her family. Having his powerful wife and father-in-law find out about the filthy secrets he was keeping. A meticulous plan began to form in my mind. My plan began with Chloe's family. Her mother, Sharon, had called me several times, trying to feel out whether Chloe and I had fought, asking why Chloe had come home in tears. Each time, I brushed it off, blaming work stress and a minor disagreement. Now, it was time to bait the hook. I called Sharon myself. "Sharon, it's Nathan." She sounded surprised, but her tone quickly became warm. "Oh, Nathan, honey, I'm so glad you called. What on earth is going on with you and Chloe? She's lost so much weight, and she just cries every time I ask her what's wrong. I've been worried sick." "Don't worry, Sharon. We're fine. Just some pressure at work. We had a stupid fight," I said, my voice light. "I was a jerk, and I've been distant. I'll come by to pick her up in a couple of days." Sharon was overjoyed. "Oh, that's wonderful. All couples fight. Nothing you can't work through. Chloe can be so stubborn. I'll have another talk with her." "Actually, there's something else," I said, changing the subject. "Chloe mentioned to me that Kyle might be in some kind of trouble." Sharon went quiet for a moment, then launched into a long, dramatic sigh, followed by a litany of complaints about how her son was misunderstood, how he got tricked into taking a loan from a shark, how vicious they were being. I listened patiently until she was done. Then I said calmly, "Sharon, don't worry about the money." Her crying stopped instantly. "Chloe told me everything. We're family. Kyle is my brother-in-law, and his problems are my problems. I'll figure out a way to cover the $75,000. Oh, really? Nathan, are you serious? Sharon's voice was filled with incredulous joy. I am, I said firmly, but I have one condition. Anything. Anything to help Kyle, I'll agree to it. First, I have to be the one to hand the money over to the loan shark. I need to make sure it actually goes to clearing the debt. Second, after it's paid, Kyle has to sign a written promise that he will never gamble again. If he does, I won't be so understanding next time. Of course, of course. Sharon agreed instantly. Don't you worry, I'll watch him like a hawk this time. If he ever gambles again, I'll break his leg myself. I reassured her a bit more, told her I was getting the funds together, and hung up. I had no intention of paying off their debt. My goal was twofold. First, to keep them calm and make them think I was still the same old reliable son-in-law they could manipulate, which would lower their guard. Second, I needed direct evidence of Kyle's illegal debt. It worked. Less than half a day later, Sharon texted me several photos. The promissory note Kyle had signed and screenshots of his text conversations with the loan shark. The threats were explicit and ugly. The loan shark's name was Rocco, a known figure in Kansas City's underworld. Perfect. I had everything I needed. I immediately packaged all of it, the texts, the note, and the record of the $75,000 transfer into my account, and sent it from a burner email to the anonymous tip line of the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. After sending it, I wiped the computer and phone. Now it was time to smoke out the snake. I sent Chloe a text from my real number. I'd unblocked her. This Saturday, 10 a.m. Meet me at the entrance to the county clerk's office. The message was delivered, but there was no reply. I knew she was hesitating, so I sent a second text. I know Leo Vance is Greg. Are you going to keep playing games with me? This time, my phone rang almost instantly. Nathan, how'd you find out? Her voice was choked with panic. How I know doesn't matter, I said coldly. What matters is whether you want to protect him or see his entire life go up in flames. There was dead silence on the other end. Finally, in a voice filled with despair, she asked, What do you want? Saturday, 10 a.m. County clerk's office. Come alone. Don't tell him, or you'll regret it. I hung up before she could respond. I knew she would come. She couldn't afford not to. She had pinned all her hopes on Leo Vance, and she wouldn't dare risk him. However, things didn't go as planned. On Saturday, I arrived at the county clerk's office half an hour early. At 9:50, Chloe's car pulled up, but she wasn't alone. Leo Vance got out with her. He was wearing a tailored blazer and a faint, unreadable smile, but his eyes were sharp as a hawk's. He helped Chloe out of the car, and they walked toward me together. My heart sank. She had told him. Or maybe I had underestimated this man's paranoia from the start. Mr. Pierce. Nathan, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. I'm Leo Vance. He extended a hand, his posture polite but radiating an aura of superiority. I ignored his hand, my gaze fixed on Chloe. She was pale as a sheet, unable to meet my eyes. I told you to come alone, I said, my voice flat and cold. I'm sorry, Nathan. Chloe's pregnant. Her emotions are a bit fragile right now. I didn't feel comfortable with her coming out by herself. Leo interjected smoothly, retracting his hand without a hint of awkwardness. Let's find somewhere to sit down and talk. Standing out here isn't good for her. He said it so matter-of-factly, as if he were her husband. I laughed, the sound dripping with sarcasm. Sure, I've been dying to ask you in person, Mr. Vance, what your plans are for my wife's pregnancy. We ended up at a nearby coffee shop. Leo ordered an espresso for himself and a warm milk for Chloe. Nathan, I know you're angry, he began, getting straight to the point. And you have every right to be. What Chloe did was wrong. I apologize on her behalf. On her behalf? I raised an eyebrow. In what capacity are you apologizing, Leo? As her first love? Or as the father of her child? A flicker of annoyance crossed Leo's face, but he quickly masked it. You're a direct man. I appreciate that. So I'll be direct as well. He took a folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table. These are divorce papers. I glanced down. Chloe's signature was already on the dotted line. The asset division section was simple. Chloe voluntarily waived her right to all marital property. The house, the cars, everything in Chloe's name is yours. In addition, we're prepared to offer you $2 million in compensation. Leo's tone was that of a CEO closing a deal. I know money can't fix emotional damage, Nathan, but this is the best we can do. $2 million. To buy my wife's womb, to buy a name for their illegitimate child, and to buy my silence. In their eyes, my dignity, my marriage, my 3 years of love and commitment had a price tag. I looked at the two of them, and suddenly, the fight drained out of me, replaced by a profound sense of disgust. There was no reasoning with people like this. I picked up the agreement, and without another glance, I slowly and deliberately tore it into pieces. Then, I tossed the confetti of paper into Leo Vance's face. Listen to me, Vance. I stood up, towering over him. I don't want your money. I will grant a divorce. But not yet. Leo's composure finally cracked. He shot to his feet, his face flushed with anger. I'm going to ruin you, I said, looking from him to the terrified, trembling Chloe. I gave them a vicious smile. I'll be sure to send a gift for your wedding. I hope you like it. With that, I turned and walked out, never looking back. I could feel Leo's venomous glare burning into my back. I didn't care. The game had just begun. Back home, I got a call from the private investigator. Mr. Pierce, I've got a new development on that thing you asked me to look into. His voice was tinged with excitement. It seems Leo Vance has more than one mistress. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I found out that besides the condo he has for Chloe, Vance owns another property in a different luxury complex in KC. It's registered to one of his company's VPs, but a young woman has been living there full-time. Her name is Jasmine. She's in her mid-20s, a moderately successful Instagram influencer. I've got multiple photos of them together, looking very cozy. But here's the kicker. The PI lowered his voice. I called in a major favor with a source at the same clinic. This Jasmine gave birth to a baby boy there last month. What? The words hit me like a physical blow. I was frozen. It's 100% confirmed. I even managed to get a copy of the paternity test. The kid is Leo Vance's. After I hung up, I stood motionless for a long time, my mind reeling. Leo was playing 2 women at the same time. No, 3. A wife who couldn't have children, a pregnant first love, and a new mistress who had already given him a son. What kind of twisted game was this man playing? He was whispering sweet nothings to Chloe, making her think she was his one true love, while another woman was already in the delivery room. So what did that make Chloe and the baby she was carrying? A backup plan? If the influencer, Jasmine, had already given him a son, why did he still need Chloe to get pregnant? One son wasn't enough? It didn't make any sense. He couldn't divorce his wife. One illegitimate child was a time bomb. Having 2 was just asking for exposure. Unless a horrifying, almost unbelievable thought struck me like a bolt of lightning, cutting through the fog of my confusion. Unless the baby in Chloe's womb wasn't Leo Vance's at all. The thought was so wild it scared me. But the more I considered it, the more it seemed like the only logical explanation. If the baby wasn't Leo's, why would Chloe lie about it? Why would she agree to carry a child for someone else? Could it be that the surrogacy story she told me was partially true? That she really was a surrogate, but the father wasn't Leo? And her affair with Leo was just a cover, a smokescreen to hide an even bigger secret? But if the baby wasn't Leo's, whose was it? Who could possibly have so much power that a man like Leo Vance would willingly play along, even offering millions of dollars to clean up the mess? I felt like I was being pulled into a vortex, and the truth at its center was far darker and more complex than I had ever imagined. Chloe Leo, the mysterious father. What was the real connection between them? Who was the real puppet master behind this entire charade? I immediately called the investigator back. I need you to find out everything about Chloe's procedure at that clinic. I want the records of her embryo transfer. I don't care what it costs. This time, I wasn't just going to ruin them. I was going to rip their entire web of lies to shreds and expose every last filthy secret to the unforgiving light of day. Waiting for the new information was agony. I spent 2 days walking through a haze, my mind consumed with theories, each more disturbing than the last. Chloe's lies were like a Russian nesting doll. Every layer I peeled back revealed another, smaller, darker secret within. 2 days later, the investigator called back. He sounded exhausted and profoundly shocked. Mr. Pierce, I found it. But this is a game changer. Tell me, I said, my heart pounding. Chloe did have an embryo transfer at the clinic. But the sperm donor, was not Leo Vance. Who was it? I demanded. Someone you would never guess. His voice was strained. It was Leo Vance's father-in-law, Senator Harrison Davenport. Boom. An atomic bomb detonated in my brain, leaving nothing but white noise. Senator Davenport? The retired senator? The man who was in his late 60s? How is that possible? Are you sure? My voice was trembling. 100%. I paid a fortune to get a source deep inside the clinic to pull the original hard copy file. It clearly lists the sperm provider as Harrison Davenport. The egg provider is listed as anonymous. Anonymous. It all clicked into place with sickening clarity. The egg wasn't from his daughter, Victoria. Because Victoria couldn't conceive, Harrison Davenport, the distinguished elder statesman, had cooked up a depraved scheme not just to get a child, but to get a male heir carrying his own bloodline. He wanted a successor, an heir with his DNA, to inherit the political and business empire he and his son-in-law had built. And Leo Vance, the son-in-law who owed him everything, was not only aware of the plan, he was its chief architect. He had to keep his wife, Victoria, happy while also appeasing his powerful father-in-law. So he found Chloe, a woman with whom he had a history, who was also in desperate need of money. He played the first love card, manipulating her completely. He let Chloe believe she was carrying his child, a symbol of their future together. How tragic and how pathetic. Chloe, from the very beginning, was nothing more than a tool, a disposable incubator. The child in her womb wasn't her lover's. It was her lover's father-in-law's. Genetically, the child would be Leo's brother-in-law. The sheer, twisted depravity of it was staggering. I finally understood why Leo needed Chloe to be pregnant, even though he already had a son with his mistress. Because that son's bloodline wasn't pure. That child's last name was Vance, not Davenport. The baby inside Chloe was the real prize, the crown prince carrying the Davenport blood. They constructed this elaborate theater to deceive the world. Once the baby was born, they would claim it was a miracle of modern science, a child for Leo and Victoria, and he would be welcomed as the rightful heir to the Davenport dynasty. I slumped in my chair, my shirt soaked with cold sweat. A wave of nausea overcame me. I stumbled to the bathroom and threw up, retching until my stomach was empty. I wasn't just vomiting up bile. I was vomiting up 3 years of happy memories, 3 years of love, 3 years of marriage that had been a lie from the start. My love was their calculation. My wife was their pawn. My home was the stage for their dirty transaction. After a long time, I looked up at my reflection in the mirror. The man staring back had bloodshot eyes and a feral, predatory snarl. It was the look of a cornered animal, ready to kill. Harrison Davenport, Leo Vance, Chloe, none of them were getting away. My plan needed an upgrade. I didn't just want a divorce. I didn't just want to ruin their reputations. I want to send them to prison. Commercial surrogacy is illegal. While the penalties aren't always severe, for a former public official like Harrison Davenport, the exposure would be a political death sentence. Every bit of prestige, power, and influence he had built over a lifetime would vanish in an instant. And Leo Vance's empire was built on the Davenport name. Once that foundation crumbled, he would be swept away like dust. I contacted the private investigator again and wired him a sum of money that far exceeded our original agreement. My request was simple. Turn all the evidence into an ironclad case. I wanted everything. Financial records showing payment from Davenport to the clinic. Transfer records between Leo and Chloe. Any photos or videos of Leo, Chloe, and Davenport at the clinic or other relevant locations. And the final, critical piece. A recording of either Leo or Davenport admitting to the plan in their own words. It was the most difficult piece of the puzzle to get, but it would also be the most lethal. The investigator told me it would take time and luck. I can wait, I said. While I waited, I moved on to the next phase, Chloe's family. My anonymous tip to the FBI had worked. A friend with connections in federal law enforcement discreetly told me that the loan shark, Rocco, and his entire crew had been arrested in a raid, facing charges of racketeering and extortion. Kyle, as a borrower, had been brought in for questioning. Sharon was frantic. She called me repeatedly, asking when the money I promised would arrive. I put her off with excuses about a project at work, a temporary cash flow problem. A few days later, When I judged the time was right, I drove to Chloe's parents' house. It was in an old, run-down neighborhood, the apartment building's hallways cluttered and smelling of mildew. Sharon answered the door. The moment she saw me, she grabbed my arm as if I were her savior. "Nathan, you're finally here, Kyle." "The police took him away." "Sharon, calm down. That's why I'm here." I helped her to the couch. Chloe emerged from a bedroom. She was wearing a baggy maternity dress, her belly now prominent. When she saw me, her expression was a mixture of guilt, fear, and was that resentment? I ignored her. "I heard about Kyle," I said to Sharon. "They just took him in for questioning. It's not a big deal. Loan sharking is illegal, and the feds are cracking down. In a way, Kyle is a victim. As long as he tells the truth, he'll be fine. But what about the money? Rocco got arrested, so does that mean we don't have to pay it back?" Sharon asked naively. I hid a sneer, putting on a serious face. "It doesn't work like that. A debt is a debt. The interest they charged was illegal, but the principal amount still needs to be repaid. If it's not, it will destroy Kyle's credit, and he'll have this hanging over his head for the rest of his life." Sharon started to panic again. "But we don't have any money." Her eyes darted toward Chloe. Chloe instinctively put a hand over her belly and shrank back. "What's the use of looking at her?" Sharon suddenly exploded, pointing a finger at her daughter. "I must have been blind. I let you get involved in this mess. And for what? You didn't get the money. And look at you. Now your brother's in trouble, and you can't do a thing to help him." Chloe went pale, tears welling in her eyes as her own mother attacked her. I watched the family drama unfold with cold detachment. The time was right. I cleared my throat. "Sharon, don't blame Chloe. She had her reasons." I took out my phone and pretended to dial a number, putting it on speaker. "Hello, Leo. It's Nathan Pierce." I kept my voice loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. Leo's cautious voice came through the speaker. "What do you want?" "Leo, I'm over at my mother-in-law's house. My brother-in-law is in trouble, and things are a mess," I said, feigning reluctance. "About that money we discussed." "Nathan, what are you talking about?" Leo's voice turned cold. "We had a deal. You signed the papers, $2 million goes into your account. The Sullivans' problems are not my concern." "How can they not be your concern? Chloe is carrying the Davenport family's golden child. After all," I said, deliberately emphasizing Davenport family and golden child. The words detonated in the small living room. Sharon and Chloe stared at me, their eyes wide with disbelief. Chloe looked like she was about to faint, all the color draining from her face. On the other end of the line, Leo went silent. After a long 10 seconds, he spoke, his voice dripping with venom. "Nathan, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm warning you. Be very careful what you say." "Am I lying, Leo?" "You know the truth," I said with a laugh. "Your father-in-law, Harrison Davenport, used his own seed and my wife's womb to try and cook up a male heir. Did you really think you could pull off a scheme that insane and keep it a secret?" "How? How did you find out?" Leo was completely rattled, his voice cracking with shock and panic. "How I found out is irrelevant," I said. "What's important is this. How do you think the good senator will feel when he learns that his precious, unborn grandson is about to become homeless along with his mother, all because of his junkie uncle's gambling debts? You think that might stress him out?" I paused, offering him a way out. "Look, Leo, I'm not trying to threaten you. I just want to solve the problem. Kyle's debt is $75,000. That's pocket change for you and the senator. Send the money, and I promise this all goes away. I take my compensation, divorce Chloe, and we never speak of this again. The secret dies with me." I could hear Leo's heavy breathing over the phone. I knew he was weighing his options. 75 grand to make this all disappear. For him, it was a bargain. "Fine," he finally bit out. "Text me your account number. The money will be there in an hour. And Nathan, I suggest you remember what you promised today." "Don't worry," I said, and hung up, a triumphant smile on my face. Across from me were two faces frozen in shock. Sharon's mouth was hanging open. Chloe was staring at me with a look of pure terror, as if she were seeing a monster. "No, you're lying," she whispered, her lips trembling. "He told me the baby was his. Ours." "Did he?" I walked over and stood before her, looking down at her. "And you actually believe him? A man who ditched you once for his career, a man who owes his entire life to his wife's family. You think he would throw all that away for you? Chloe, you're not stupid. You've just been lying to yourself. I pulled up the photo the PI had taken of the influencer, Jasmine, holding her son, standing next to a smiling Leo Vance. I tossed the phone into her lap. Look closely. That is Leo Vance's real son. You, and that thing in your belly, have been nothing but a means to an end from the very beginning. Chloe looked at the picture, then at me, then down at her own swollen stomach. A horrifying, animalistic scream ripped from her throat. Her eyes rolled back in her head, and she collapsed. Chloe! Sharon shrieked, rushing to her side. The room descended into chaos. I watched it all, feeling nothing. I picked up my phone from the floor. The entire call with Leo had been recorded. Chloe was rushed to the hospital. The doctor said the shock had sent her into preterm labor and she needed to be hospitalized to prevent a miscarriage. Sharon stayed with her, which meant she was no longer bothering me. My bank account soon registered a new deposit of $75,000 from Leo Vance. Everything was proceeding according to plan. My chain of evidence was now complete. From Davenport and Leo's conspiracy with the clinic to their deal with Chloe to the hush money they paid me. I had testimony from Chloe and myself, physical evidence, clinic records, bank transfers, photos, and the recording. It was airtight. I didn't detonate the bomb right away. I was waiting for the perfect moment, a moment that would maximize their pain and despair. That moment arrived soon enough. Leo's company, Vance Innovations, was hosting a massive 10th anniversary gala and new product launch the following Friday. It was the biggest event of the year in Kansas City. The city's political and business elite would be there. Senator Harrison Davenport was scheduled to attend as the guest of honor to support his son-in-law. It was set to be the greatest moment of Leo Vance's life. It would also be his last. I compiled all the evidence into several identical packages. One was sent to the Senate Ethics Committee with a formal, signed complaint against former Senator Harrison Davenport for moral corruption and involvement in an illegal surrogacy ring. Another was sent to several national news outlets with massive online readerships. I even suggested a headline: Former Senator, desperate for an heir, conspires with son-in-law in womb for rent scandal. The final and most important package I delivered personally to Victoria Davenport, Leo's wife, Harrison's daughter. Finding her was easy. She lived a life of routine and luxury. Spa appointments, charity luncheons, and afternoon cocktails at the country club. I cornered her in the parking lot of her favorite club. She was driving a red Maserati, impeccably dressed, with an air of untouchable arrogance. "Can I help you?" she asked, rolling down her window, her eyes scanning me dismissively. "Mrs. Vance," I said, holding out the manila envelope. "My name is Nathan Pierce. I'm Chloe Sullivan's husband. I think you want to see what's in here." At the mention of Chloe's name, Victoria's expression hardened. She knew. Of course she knew. In her world, a husband's dalliances were probably an open secret, something to be tolerated as long as it was kept quiet. She didn't take the envelope. "Are you here for payout?" she asked coldly. "Everything I want is in that envelope," I said, placing it on the hood of her car. "After you read it, if you still want to be on the same side as your father and your husband, then pretend we never met." I turned and walked away. I knew she would look. No woman, especially one as proud as Victoria Davenport, could tolerate this level of deception. Now all I had to do was wait for the show. Friday night, the Vance Innovations 10th anniversary gala. The grand ballroom of Kansas City's most luxurious hotel was glittering, filled with the city's most powerful people. Leo Vance, in a custom tuxedo, stood on stage, delivering a charismatic, triumphant speech. Senator Davenport sat at the head table, beaming with pride. It was a perfect picture of success and power. I wasn't there. I was at home, watching the event on a live stream, my eyes on the clock. As the clock struck 8 p.m., I hit send. An anonymous email containing the most damning recording was sent to every journalist and media personality in attendance. The subject line read, "The Real Vance Innovations Product Launch." Through the live stream, I could almost hear the chorus of notification chimes from the reporters' phones. A moment of silence. Then a collective, audible gasp. The first reporter to react shot to his feet. "Mr. Vance, can you comment on a recording that is currently circulating in which you appear to discuss a plan with your father-in-law, Senator Davenport, to arrange an illegal surrogacy? The question was a bomb that shattered the festive atmosphere. Every camera, every spotlight swiveled to the man on the stage, whose smile was now frozen on his face. The color drained from Leo's cheeks. He instinctively looked toward his father-in-law. Senator Davenport, a man who had weathered countless political storms, was completely blindsided. His proud smile was gone, replaced by a mask of pure shock and panic. The room erupted. Journalists swarmed the stage like sharks that had scented blood. Senator Davenport, is it true that you violated federal law to obtain a male heir? Mr. Vance, the surrogate is alleged to be your former girlfriend. Was your wife, Victoria Davenport, aware of this arrangement? Is it true that the child is biologically your father-in-law's? The questions were brutal, relentless. Security guards tried to intervene, but were quickly overwhelmed. At the peak of the chaos, the ballroom doors were thrown open. Victoria Davenport strode in, dressed in a severe black gown, her face a mask of ice. Behind her were several uniformed police officers. The room fell silent. Every eye was on her as she walked straight to the stage and took the microphone from a stunned reporter's hand. "Good evening," she said. Her voice was cold, clear, and amplified throughout the cavernous room. "Regarding the information you have all just received, I, Victoria Davenport, can personally confirm that every single word of it is true." It was a death sentence. Senator Davenport went pale and nearly collapsed in his chair. Leo, his face ashen, crumpled on the stage, muttering no. "Torai, please, let me explain." Victoria gave him a look of pure loathing, a look one gives to something already dead. "I have nothing to hear from you," she said. She turned to the police officers. "Officers, I wish to file a report. My father, Harrison Davenport, and my husband, Leo Vance, have conspired to commit a felony. I also have evidence that Leo Vance has been embezzling funds from his company. This contains everything you need." She handed a thick portfolio to the lead officer. He opened it, his expression growing grim as he scanned the first page. He looked up and gestured to his men. "Take them into custody." The flash of cameras was blinding, capturing the historic moment as the celebrated entrepreneur and the revered statesman were handcuffed and led away like common criminals from the scene of their greatest triumph. I closed the laptop, letting out a long, slow breath. The toxic weight that had been crushing my chest for months finally lifted. The sky was clearing. The end of the story was predictable. The Davenport-Vance scandal was the biggest news of the year. Harrison Davenport was found guilty of ethics violations and conspiracy. He was stripped of his pension and all his titles and sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. A lifetime of public service erased. Leo's fate was worse. On top of the conspiracy charges, Victoria and the other company shareholders presented a mountain of evidence of fraud and embezzlement. He was sentenced to 15 years. All his assets, including his shares in Vance Innovations, were seized. He went from a titan of industry to a penniless inmate overnight. The influencer, Jasmine, showed up once with her baby, demanding child support for Victoria. She was unceremoniously thrown out. "His son is not my problem," Victoria reportedly said. Jasmine and her child were never heard from again. As for Chloe, she watched the live stream of the gala from her hospital bed. The shock was too much. She went into labor that night and gave birth to a baby boy. Because the surrogacy contract was illegal, the baby's custody became a legal gray area. But Victoria Davenport swiftly resolved it. Citing humanitarian grounds, she legally adopted the child. I never knew her true motives. Perhaps it was pity for an innocent life. Or perhaps it was the ultimate revenge, a permanent, living reminder to her father and ex-husband, sitting in their prison cells, of their greed and betrayal. After Chloe was discharged, she had nowhere to go but back to her parents' crumbling apartment. There, she was met by her brother Kyle, now with a criminal record that made him unemployable, and her mother, a woman broken by the public shame, who did little but cry all day. I heard Chloe went to see Victoria once, begging to see the baby. Victoria met her at the door and handed her a cashier's check for $75,000. "This is the payment you were owed," Victoria told her. "From this moment on, you have no connection to this child. Do not ever disturb my family again." Chloe stood outside the gates of the Davenport mansion with that check in her hand for an entire afternoon before finally walking away. My divorce from Chloe was finalized quickly. As the at-fault party due to adultery and fraud, she was entitled to nothing. The judge awarded me all marital assets. She left with nothing but the clothes on her back. On the last day of the proceedings, she was waiting for me outside the courthouse. She was skeletal, her eyes hollow. She looked like a ghost. "Nathan," she called out, her voice a dry rasp. "Your plan, from the very beginning, it was to destroy all of us, wasn't it?" I stopped and looked back at the woman I had once loved so deeply. "Yes," I answered calmly. From a moment, I knew the truth. "Why?" she cried, silent tears tracing paths down her gaunt cheeks. "Why couldn't you just let it go? You could have taken the money, divorced me, and started a new life. Why'd you have to be so cruel?" "Let you go." I laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "You asked me why. Did you ever ask yourself, while I was working late nights, killing myself for our future, what it felt like to be lying in another man's arms? When you were burying me in lies, trampling on my love and my dignity, did you ever stop and think that this day would come? When you all treated me like a fool you could endlessly manipulate and betray, you should have considered one thing. Fools wake up, and a fool who is awake is more dangerous than any devil you can imagine." I turned my back on her for the last time and walked away without looking back. The sun was warm on my face. Behind me, I could hear her hopeless, broken sobs. I kept walking. Some mistakes can never be undone. Some betrayals demand the highest price. My world, finally cleansed of all the filth, felt clean and bright again. And it was good.